Hello and welcome to this lockdown episode of the Toffee Blues Everton Newsfeed podcast. Onto, I suppose, the most contentious thing to discuss during this time of no football. And again, it has been hard, hasn't it? Like, I've got to be honest, like, and I know this might sound really, really sad, but losing that structure of Saturdays when the football's played, it's like it just thrown my life into some sort of abyss, like having a complete absence of football. Like I'm going back and I'm watching classic matches and World Cup finals, Champions League finals, old Everton matches. But at this present moment in time, hotly contested, as I say, amongst many individuals involved in football. Like, what are we actually going to do with the remaining 92 games that are left to play? Now, the Premier League official communications have come out and said that they were looking to, play has essentially been postponed until the 30th of April, meaning that games would not commence until May, which surely you agree with me here, Terry, but I think it's going to be a long while after that.
Yeah, I mean, just, on the record, like I mean, the governing bodies and all the clubs have said, haven't they, they're committed to like completing the season, which, all like, obvious, jokes aside, I don't think anyone wants it to be cancelled. I think a lot of people expect it to. Because if you just look at the other things that have been cancelled, like Wimbledon's been cancelled now.
Grand National.
That's well, this is the thing. Wimbledon is due to be played the end of June, start of July. Now, I don't see how sporting events, even behind closed doors, with the amount of things that need to go on there, can be played in May. With the way things are now, I would love it to be the case. Like I've said it on previous shows. Like I was dead against playing behind closed doors early in this predicament that we're in. And now I'd give me a right arm for it. Like I just want football back. I miss it. Everyone misses it. This has shown this period that it doesn't matter whether your team's good or whether your team's terrible. It's your team, and it's such a big part of your life. You go online, you read the paper, you do everything. You listen to the radio. It's all about football for a lot of people, and we're the same. Like I'm seeing like transfer stories online. I'm just going, there's probably nothing in that because they're all at home. Then like, what are they? Like, how is that getting out if it's true? Because they're probably not even speaking to each other at clubs and whatnot at this point because they don't know when they can even complete deals. And if they are talking to each other, how can anyone get that information if it's in a phone call? So it's just you can't even get into anything like that. There's been a few things mentioned, hasn't there? Like little like mini World Cup style, like playing out of games, which has been rubbish by like a lot of pundits and stuff as being like irresponsible and unrealistic. I don't see it getting completed. Like I think it'd be a disaster for every single club in the country, big and small, for reasons we'll go into. But I just don't see how. I'd love it to be completed, and I'd love it to improve so rapidly that we can get back to it. But no one as yet is able to convince me how it has happened.
Yeah, so this sort of World Cup style approach, I think it initially come out from an article by Miguel Delaney in the Independent, and full credit to Miguel Delaney. Like I've met the guy. I think the stuff he gets out there is really good. But this sort of format of obviously 92 games remaining, and playing them in a sort of essentially a World Cup style format, which means say there'd be a couple of televised games a day. I think that obviously that rears the head to a couple of different things. Firstly, I think it shows the importance of broadcasters to the game. Like I'm essentially doing my dissertation on it. Like it's not so much it's sad to say. I think it's a sort of harsh truth now that broadcasters are, if not the most important shareholders in football, given the revenue that they pump into the game now. And I think the government actually are I think in the article it highlighted that the government are in favour of the idea because they quite like the prospect of the nation sort of having something to do in terms of having a national sport event to watch. And I think that was summed up quite nicely by my mate in one of my recent episodes of my podcast, where he said football is the most important of the least important things, in a sense. So while it's deemed non-essential, it does really bring a sense of community to people. However, and this is where my sort of view, this is where I stand on the whole conundrum, essentially, is that, yes, okay, you can play games behind closed doors, but take for example, Mikel Arteta, obviously the manager of Arsenal, and I think the whole sort of coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic hit me once I found out that my childhood hero had it. Like, if he's the manager of Arsenal, obviously I think he's tested negative for it now. I think it was his birthday the other day, and he come out that he's tested negative for it. But I think there's been examples of people who have tested positive for it, who eventually been tested negative, have sort of gone into remission and tested positive for it again. So, like you're saying, there are so many elements to a football game. The crowd aside, it's like medical professionals, officials, on the bench, you're obviously that's completely bypassing social distancing, as it were. So I think, yeah, you can play games behind closed doors, in order to try and fulfill the demands of broadcasters to get their money's worth. But players are still really at high risk, essentially, if they're, I think one of the key figures in football that first came out being tested positive was the chairman of Nottingham Forest, if I'm not wrong. And then this has sort of had a domino effect of, obviously Mikel and then a couple of other figures, so like Callum Hudson-Odoi at Chelsea. So, I think that's where I stand on it. I think Rooney I think it was his first article in the Times he come out with, where essentially he said he doesn't mind the idea of the 2021 season starting late, so it just basically resume as soon as possible, whenever that may be, but it also sort of acclimatizes the international players for by the time the World Cup in Qatar rolls around, which would be 2022. But again, there's just so much ambiguity surrounding it, and it doesn't help the fact that there's two major international competitions. Obviously, the Euros has been moved to 2021 now, and we don't know what impact that's going to have into the World Cup. But as I say, I genuinely don't think anyone can say with much certainty at the moment when play is going to resume, in a sense. Again, what do you feel about all of this?
I mean, it just can't resume, whether they want it or not. Like they can say, and I agree, it would be a massive boon to the the efforts of the governments, whatever, to have football back on. Just for the national morale, if anything. And not everyone likes football, but enough people do. You know what I mean? Like a distraction and what have you. But if it is, say it is voided, it'd be absolutely catastrophic to every club, big, small, whatever, because there's, most clubs now are operating. Well, I can only speak for Premier League clubs. It goes without saying the lower league clubs would all be financially devastated because they're, relying on match day revenue and what have you. The bigger clubs, the Premier League clubs who aren't so much relying on match day revenue, they are very much relying on TV money revenue, and that would be thrown into question if they don't fulfill the games they've got lined up. Now, all right, it's an unprecedented situation, and I think the broadcasters would be ill-served to go against the decision, even if it is, to not pay the money if it's voided, because it isn't a decision that the league have made likely, or the clubs have made likely, and the broadcasters want to be very careful, because when this gets back to normal, and it eventually will, the league and the clubs will remember that if these clubs are still around, that the TV companies withheld the money for something that wasn't their fault. And when it comes to renewing the deals, they might, clubs might look to break away and do this, this Netflix of Premier League idea that it's been touted. But there's a lot of clubs, you know, like even the bigger ones, Man United, Liverpool, what have you, who've got massive revenue streams. They can't survive without the Premier League TV money. The wage bills are too big. Like, it doesn't matter how many shirts you sell in like China and Australia and America, it's not enough to pay these massive contracts. They've got Everton be the same, we're massively reliant on the TV money. I mean, I don't know whether it'd just be prudent to do that. You know, Rooney's idea, just let it come back in September, whenever it is, and then, you know, have a short break with no, you know, because the players need like a short break and then a short pre-season, then back into the football. It'd be bizarre from a supporter's point of view to, like, you know, get used to that, because it'd be so different to normal. But then do you count this time off that they've got now as a rest, as a break to the players? I don't think the players feel rested because it's stressful.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you can't, you know, when we start again, even if we were to start again like soon, you'd still need like a little acclimatization period of training and what have you. And if it goes on for a long time, you wouldn't just need training; you'd need like pre-season games and all the equivalents. And, you know, it probably wouldn't be international at that point. It'd be, you know, we'd play Tranmere and Chester and what have you. That's even if they still exist at that time. It's such a bizarre, unprecedented scenario. And even the Premier League clubs, the super elite clubs, they aren't guaranteed to be so financially secure that they can sort of weather the fallout if it's voided. The voiding of this league might see some big name clubs go to the wall because of the way they're managed and the you know, money aspect, because even clubs that are well run and live within their means, they're budgeted on that TV money, and if it doesn't, you know, all come in and all the match day revenue and everything on top of it, you're relying on a rich owner to basically underwrite those losses. And who's to say, you know, some of them can even do it, because, you know, there's going to be a global recession on the back of this, or they at least predict there will be. So, you know, some owners could find they've not got as much money as they used to, or they're not as willing to underwrite, you know, costs for a, you know, Premier League club. I don't know. I mean, voiding, as much as everyone would go, oh, Liverpool lost the league and all that, it would be a very bad thing for all the clubs. Just let the just play it, let them win it, and they can't even have a parade. So, and then this season won't be remembered for that anymore anyway. It'll be remembered for the virus. So you just let them win it. Come on. I know it's even if it does come back, there's going to be huge ramifications for football. It could have come at the very worst time for us. They could have a huge deflation effect on, like, say, transfer.
Carlo Ancelotti come out and said something similar to that, didn't he? Saying that could be one of the huge adaptations that the football industry has to take. Is like obviously over the last couple of years we've gone through. I think it was all triggered by Neymar's transfer, almost the sort of inflation of transfer fees and the industry as a whole. But yeah,
I mean, that was the sort of, you know, the pillar sort of transfer where it gets tied to, but it was a lot of the TV revenue and all that. So the Premier League. The Premier League was the straw that stirred the drink, really, wasn't it? Because, you know, all this Premier League money, you know, clubs like Bournemouth were like richer than Valencia and, you know, teams like that, and just basically all the Premier League money would go out and onto the continent, and then that would just spin around the continent. But the source of a lot of the money, apart from the very big clubs like, say, Madrid or Barcelona, Bayern Munich, most of the money that was washing around was just the money that started in the Premier League, which come from Sky and BT and what have you. I still think there'll be that money, but I think this will have significantly spooked enough clubs to spend less. So in order to get players off your books, you'll have to price them as a lot lower. We're in this phase where we need to still be selling. You know, we're still looking to shift players like Cenk Tosun and Morgan Schneiderlin, say, sorry, Max. But yeah, it could have a massive negative effect on us because we won't be able to generate the funds that we thought we might be able to. But then on the other hand, it might not even come to a recession. Like, you know, you just don't know, because there's no way of knowing. It could be that prices go up because clubs are looking to, you know, recoup even more money to make themselves more financially stable. But this is I mean, I'm not an expert, but I think as well this is going to scare any clubs who are relying on banks, because the instability of it
Yeah,
will scare banks, because banks will basically look and go, well, the revenue of a football club is not guaranteed. They're not always going to complete their season. So if we can complete the season, that'd be better on the financial front of things, because it'll show, look, even in the most unlikely and severe of circumstances, we still completed our obligations and still earned the money that we were projected to, or the close
yeah,
to. If it's voided and we lose a load of money, then banks will be wary to touch football again, because their income streams will not be nailed on, which is what they need to lend.
100%. Tifo Football have been coming out with some pretty good articulate content, as they always tend to with their YouTube videos and the podcast and whatnot. And as you rightly said, Terry, I think most of, if not all, Premier League clubs are self-sufficient as a virtue of the TV monies that's generated, but the real sort of serious consequences of this, as you say, is when you start looking at the EFL clubs, and when you start looking at the teams lower down the pyramid, where I think most of them don't live within their means, as you say, depending on loans and what have you. I think player wages is the key sort of outgoing that puts them spending out of the means. But as you say, there could be obviously we've seen what sort of transpired with Bury. I've got a bad feeling that might carry over, and we might see a couple of other bankruptcies as time progresses. But fingers crossed that won't be the case, because, like I said, this does also provide an opportunity for football clubs to be more humanitarian during this time. Obviously, we're seeing the pain of non-playing staff, and we are seeing some bad examples as well of sort of players being let go, and some under 18 squads not being paid, which I do think is disgraceful, in all honesty, given that you are generating enough money to pay them. But as we say, it is early doors, and this lockdown's only just started, and it's very surreal, unprecedented times, and there's bound to be more that we'll have a clearer picture as time goes on, I imagine.
A lot of the negative effects will be mitigated if we've managed to complete the season. However we do it, if we manage to do it, then it won't be a fatal injury, it'll just be an injury. But I just don't see how. It looks really, really unlikely, regardless of how much it's needed by those clubs, because there's things that are on in July, not they're getting cancelled. Wimbledon, as I said, and there's always the option. Well, why don't we start much later? Carry on, do this league in September or what have you. You've got to get other federations. This is another problem. You've got to get other federations to agree with that. How does the transfer window work? How do other things work in union with that? It's so many moving parts to account for.
Definitely. I think we covered all bases there, have we not?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's one of those scenarios where it's all just opinion. There's no certainty at the time of recording. There's no certainty. There's no decisions made. It's all just up in the air. And even at the very top of the game, I think it's up in the air. I don't think anyone knows how to do this, because there's the things that there's probably no legislation for a global pandemic stopping the whole of football at once, apart from Belarus for some reason. The only things that were nailed on were the timetables. They were the most concrete thing in football. You play on these days and these months and what have you. And we'll be feeling this for so long. Like this, even if it's only a couple of months of lockdown, the ramifications of this will go on for years, like tournament wise and everything else. And, yeah,
it's rough. And as you say, like different federations, I think today actually UEFA have come out and said that Europa League and Champions League games are going to be suspended indefinitely. So again, as you say, ramifications abound. So
they won't be coming back. Even if the league's complete, I don't see the European competitions coming back
for a while. No. Fingers crossed that obviously there's going to be a there's got to be a clinical process that takes place, and it'll probably take a few months. But fingers crossed the vaccine gets sorted sooner rather than later, because that's when I feel like things will start kicking into gear again.
That'd be the magic bullet. I mean, it's it's not as easy as all that, but I mean, if you manage to do that, then you could start to turn the wheels of everything else coming back. Then you wouldn't need everyone to be vaccinated before you opened up things again, but you'd be able to get NHS staff done and what have you, and then bit by bit. But I don't know. I just hope it's completed. The novelty and the enjoyment of Liverpool missing out on the title will be tainted by the negative effect it's had on everyone else. If Everton came out smelling like roses, I'd be all up for it, but they won't. And I can't. It's not good. And it's not enough of a temptation for me to wish for it. And now all the Reds accuse us of wishing for it. We don't. We just think that'd be the only positive in a sad situation. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it transcends football, and on a human note, I hope everybody that's listening in the audience staying safe out there, staying indoors and looking after them and those close to them.
Yeah, that goes without saying. Obviously, people might be screaming at me now, going, "Fucking, fat dickhead." It's only you're laughing about football and there's people dying. Listen, my wife works for the NHS. I know full well what the situation is, but this is a football podcast. You try and look at it from a different angle, I suppose, and get something out of it. This strange, unprecedented situation.
Terry, take care, man. Look after yourself and everybody else out there. As I say, look after yourselves, look after your families. Stick to this lockdown. Don't be gathering in groups. It's not wise, and stop panic buying toilet roll, you dickheads. It's just a stupid thing to do.
Wash your hands.
Yeah, wash your hands as well. Take care, everyone.